My name is Alex Hall, and I'm really excited to share my career story with you all today. And you might have heard that I'm not a Kiwi, I'm actually from Germany. And I grew up in a place called Mettmann, which is close to the Neanderthal, which might be a word that you've heard before because it's actually the name of the guy that you see on the left. That is a species of human that lived 40,000 years ago. And the first one of them has been discovered in my hometown, where I also went to school. So that's a fun fact about the place that I go to school with. And my favorite subjects back in school were geography, English, math, and French. So you can see quite a mixture of science and languages that I quite liked. And when I finished school, I kind of wanted to find something that that let me include all my interests in what I would do and study. So I bumped into engineering, which is really everywhere we go, and that is so exciting. Particularly, I find civil engineering exciting because it incorporates so many different disciplines: water engineering, transport engineering, ground engineering, bridge engineering. I find that just fascinating. So I chose to study that in Wuppertal. And Wuppertal is also famous for quite a funny incident. Most famous it's for its monorail, which you can see in the picture. It's a suspended train, and it's over 100 years old. And back in the days, people thought it would be a good idea to prove its strength by putting an elephant on the train. But unfortunately, the elephant didn't quite agree and jumped out of the train into the river, luckily in a very muddy place, so nobody got hurt. But yeah, that's another fun fact about one of the places that I'm very close to. And studying engineering has really provided me with a very fantastic and diverse career over the years. So I worked on bridges, I built bridges in the past for the railway in Germany, but I also worked on airports in Pangu Pangu. You see the picture at the bottom. That's me on the field in American Samoa. I also worked and lived in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, obviously also in New Zealand. I got to present on my work at conferences. So a very broad range of things that I got to do thanks to being an engineer. But today I want to focus on what I do nowadays. So I focus on understanding how New Zealanders move around. So really understanding why people use the train, the car, when do people walk, and how do they make those decisions. So in the picture, you can see a few people talking about their journeys and how they regret some of their decisions. So one says that the bus is really full and the road is really busy, should have left earlier, or should leave earlier next time, or taken a new route altogether. So it's really understanding how people make those decisions when they take certain routes or certain transport types. And why is this so important? To get rid of congestion. And I can imagine that almost all of us have had this experience of standing in traffic. And this is not only very annoying and because you're wasting your time, but it's also very, very bad for the environment. All these cars that you see there, they're emitting CO2, which is bad for the climate. And globally, transport is accounting for 25% of CO2 emissions. So getting rid of congestion really helps us reduce that footprint of transport. And even better if we get people out of cars into buses, trains, and even more so on cycles and walking. So shifting people's behaviors in transport is really important to do, and being more mindful of our decisions in transport. So that's what I'm trying to help with. And another bad impact of traffic or congestion is it's also bad for the economy. You might have heard the term time is money. So whenever people stand in traffic, they are not productive. So that's also bad for our economy as a country. And here you can see a bit of a snippet of our simulation that we're building at the moment. You can see in New Zealand and the hours of the day and how people move around. So you just saw some green dots coming up. That is when people go to work in the morning. And now you see in the afternoon, people will go to work, go back home. So you see blue dots. And let's have another look at that. So this is one part of our simulation, where we can look at how people, or where people live and where do they go to work and what kind of distances do they have to travel. So you see the green dots mostly in big cities, but also across New Zealand. So people are very busy all across the country. And then in the afternoon, people go back home. So yeah, that's one exciting output that I wanted to share with you from the work that I do on the simulation. And I want to explain to you, how do we do this? First of all, on the left, we need to understand how New Zealand works. What is the network? What does it look like? Where can you drive? Where can you fly to? Can you take the ferry? So really simulating what is out there in reality. And then on the right-hand side, we really want to understand how New Zealanders move around. Why do they make certain decisions? What age are they? Where do they go to school? Where do they work? So really, all of the 5 million people in New Zealand, we want to understand better. And how do we do it? We build it with code. And code is a tool that is used to build all the programs that we use in all our daily life. Our cell phones are programmed with code, and so is also our simulation. So I'm also very excited that as a civil engineer nowadays, I learn how to code. So a new skill that I learned 10 years into my career, which is really exciting. And I also don't build it all by myself. So we have a big team across 3 nations. So we obviously have a team in New Zealand, but also people in the London office that work with us, and also in Melbourne in Australia. So it's a really big team that I'm leading and building this simulation, which is super, super exciting. When I was asked, what are the key STEM skills that I use every day? That was a really easy question for me to answer. First of all, it was teamwork, because nothing that you do in my job and everybody's jobs as an engineer is doing things by yourself. You always have to work in a team. So really understanding how best to work with each other is really important. Then communication. So how to communicate within your team is also quite important, because if you can't communicate your ideas, it's nothing, it's worth not much. So understanding also how to communicate in person or over the phone or in text form. So this is another big part of my everyday job. And then probably my favorite one is the creative problem solving that engineering requires to do. So you've seen that I've done some quite technical work in the past, but a lot of it is also around people and understanding people a bit better. So really understanding how the world functions is part of my job, which I find so exciting about engineering as well. One thing I wish I knew at your age before pursuing a STEM career, if I had to answer that, it would probably be this. The subject you study does not determine what you do for the rest of your life. This has been so true for my career. I started out as a civil engineer, building bridges for the railway, but now I build a simulation, learn new skills, learn how to code. And this is so exciting. And I love that about engineering, that it really gives you all the breadth and all the opportunity to shape your career as you want it. So don't stress out if you don't know your passion by the end of school. You can still shape your career to what you want it to be. So do something that you like and do it well, and then see where it takes you, and just be open to new experiences and learning new skills.